new tenant is the kindest person I know, and I'm absolutely terrified of her. The last thing I remember is the woods. The sound of a lullaby, ancient and sweet, drifting out from between the black trunks of the pines. Then, nothing. A thick, dreamless void. I came to with the bartender shaking my shoulder, his face blurry. Closing up, old-timer. The words sounded like they were coming from the bottom of a well. My head was thick with fog, and the beer in front of me was warm and flat. I'd only meant to stay for one. But the clock on the wall glowed 1:45. 3 hours of my life gone. Wiped clean. And I know, without a doubt, that it was because of her. My tenant. It started a few weeks ago. The cabin my pappy's pappy built sits on 50 acres of dense woods, a good piece away from town. I've been renting it out for years. The last fella, Kalen, was a real piece of work. Always late on the rent, always a new excuse. I finally had enough. After 4 months of radio silence, I drove out there, planning to give him his walking papers myself. The place looked worse than I'd ever seen it. The porch steps were busted, a stained, ripped mattress was propped against the siding like some grotesque welcome mat, and beer cans littered the overgrown yard. A hot spike of anger shot through me. I'd given that boy a break on the rent with the understanding he'd keep the place up. I stomped up onto the porch, my boots crunching on gravel and broken glass, and hammered on the door. "Kalen, open this door. We need to talk about this mess and the money you owe me." The door didn't fly open to reveal Kalen's sheepish, greasy face. It swung inward silently, and a woman stood there. She was tall, with a kind of willowy grace you don't see much anymore. Her hair was the color of dark honey, braided down her back, and she wore a simple, long dress that looked like something out of a history book. But it was her eyes that held me. They were the green of a forest floor after a hard rain, and they seemed to see right through the bluster and anger, down to the lonely old man underneath. My first thought was a grim one. Kalen had gotten himself into trouble with women before. I was ready to throw him out on his ear, legalities be damned. "Can I help you?" she asked. Her voice, it wasn't just a sound, it was a physical thing. It felt like the low hum of a cello string vibrating right in my chest, a layered chord that seemed to smooth out the jagged edges of my thoughts. The anger I'd worked up on the drive over just dissolved, leaving a strange, placid calm in its wake. Yeah, miss. I'm looking for Kalen. I'm the landlord." I tried to peek around her into the house. It looked clean, tidy. The mess I remembered from my last visit was gone. She tilted her head, a gesture like a curious bird. "Kalen? He doesn't live here anymore. He packed his things and left about a month ago. Don't you remember?" Her forest green eyes held mine. The question hung in the air, wrapped in that voice that felt like warm honey pouring into my ears. My mind went fuzzy. A month ago. Did he? I couldn't seem to grasp the memory. It was like trying to catch smoke in my hands. She spoke again, the soothing tones washing over me. "I'm your new tenant, Renardine. Our agreement was $500 a month in exchange for my upkeep of the house and the land. I paid you the first 3 months up front. Cash." The words weren't just words. They were threads, weaving themselves into the empty spaces in my mind, creating a new memory. A solid one. Yes, of course. Kalen, the deadbeat, had finally moved on. And this lovely, responsible young woman had taken his place. I remembered the crisp bills in my hand, her firm handshake. How could I have forgotten? My memory's just not what it used to be. Right. "Of course," I mumbled, feeling a blush creep up my neck. "Forgive me, my dear. Renardine. A pleasure." She offered a small, knowing smile and extended a cool, slender hand. "The pleasure is all mine." A week later, I still felt like a fool for forgetting her. I stopped at the bakery in town and picked up a box of apple crumb muffins, deciding to drop them by as a combination housewarming and apology gift. As I pulled up, I could hear two things: the rhythmic thump, thump, thump of a hammer and singing. The voice floated on the breeze, a slow, soulful melody that was achingly familiar. It was raw and full of a hurt so deep it made my own chest ache in sympathy. The closer I got, the calmer I felt, the sound of it settling over me like a weighted blanket. By the time I reached the porch, I realized she was singing Janis Joplin, but slower, drawing out each note until it hung in the air, shimmering with emotion. I stood there, utterly mesmerized, until the last note faded into the chirping of the crickets. The porch was transformed. The broken step was fixed, solid as a rock. A section of the railing that had been rotting away was replaced with new, clean wood. Without turning from the nail she was hammering, she asked, "What brings you around today?" I shuffled forward, holding out the white pastry box. "Well, I brought you a little something. Still feel bad about last week, forgetting you and all." She tapped in the final nail and turned to me, wiping a stray strand of hair from her forehead. A rueful smile touched her lips. "Don't you worry about it. I'm well accustomed to being forgotten." She took the muffins just as my phone buzzed on my belt clip. I fumbled for it, seeing my daughter Alara's name on the screen. "Sorry, 1 second," I said, turning away for a little privacy. "Hey, sweetie? Everything all right?" "Hi, Dad. I'm just calling to ask if you've gotten your shots updated yet. Leo's birthday is next month, and you're not coming if you're not up to date." A familiar weariness settled in my bones. "Alara, we've been over this. I don't trust that stuff. You don't know what they're putting in." "Dad, I'm serious," she cut me off, her voice sharp. "This isn't a debate. It's my son's health. If you want to be in his life, you will do this one simple thing to protect him." My face flushed hot. "You can't keep my grandson from me over this." "That's not right. I can and I will. He's my son. Get the shots, email me the proof from the doctor. That's the deal. I have to go." The line went dead. I stood there, pan shaking, the anger and the hurt churning in my gut until I thought I'd be sick. "Is everything okay?" I turned. Renadine stood a few feet away, her green eyes filled with a deep, sincere concern. I wasn't going to burden her with my family drama, but the look on her face, it was so open, so understanding. Before I knew it, the whole story was tumbling out of me, a torrent of frustration about my daughter, my grandson, and the world I didn't understand anymore. She listened patiently, her arms crossed, nodding as I ranted. When I finally ran out of steam, she spoke, her voice that same soothing balm. "I can hear how much that hurts you," she began, and the simple validation almost brought tears to my eyes. "It sounds like she's just terrified of losing her little boy. The world is a scary place for a new mother. You're old enough to remember polio, aren't you? I had a great uncle who spent his life in a wheelchair from it. We're so lucky now. We have these modern miracles that can keep our children from suffering like that. It's a gift, really. A parent's first job is to protect their child, no matter what. It sounds like that's all your daughter is trying to do." Her voice, the cadence of it, the logic swimming in those melodic tones, it seeped into me. It wasn't a trick. It was just the truth. A simple truth I'd been too stubborn to see. Of course, Alara was just trying to protect Leo, and I wanted to protect him too. My anger evaporated, replaced by a quiet sense of purpose. I nodded slowly. "You're right. You're absolutely right. She's just being a good mum. I'll call the doctor tomorrow." Renadine's smile was warm as the summer sun. "Good. You have a lovely afternoon now. I need to get back to this railing." She gave my shoulder a gentle pat and turned back to her work. That was the night I saw her at the Crow's Nest, our local watering hole. She was alone at the end of the bar, nursing a small glass of what looked like whiskey. I was about to go say hello when some young buck, full of cheap beer and unearned confidence, slid onto the stool next to her. He put a hand on her shoulder, leaning in close. I saw her stiffen, her expression turning to stone. I started to get up, but then I heard her voice, harder and flintier than I'd ever heard it. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the barroom chatter like a razor. I told you to leave. Be grateful, that's all I'm telling you. Oh, come on, honey, the guy slurred, grinning. Don't be like that. I'm here for you. And then she didn't exactly sing. It was more like the words themselves became a melody, a low, menacing chant. The water's dark, the water's deep, promises I'm bound to keep. Best walk away, best run and hide, before you're pulled in by the tide. The change in the guy was instantaneous. The colour drained from his face. His cocky grin vanished, replaced by a slack-jawed terror. He scrambled off the stool, stumbling backward over his own feet, and practically ran out of the bar without a backwards glance. I settled back onto my stool, a cold knot forming in my stomach. I ordered another beer and tried to focus on the game on the TV, but my eyes kept drifting back to her. A while later, I saw her slide off her stool and approach another man. My blood ran cold. I knew this one. Silas Croft. A nasty piece of work who'd been in and out of jail for beating on every woman he'd ever been with. He was twice her age and had a mean, feral look in his eyes. She tapped him on the shoulder. When he turned, she gave him a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw his expression change. His eyes went glassy, his posture slackened. A moment later, they stood up and walked out the door together. A primal alarm bell went off in my head. I threw a 20 on the bar and followed them, my bad knee screaming in protest. I'm not a hero, but she was my tenant. A young woman, new to town. She didn't know what a monster Silas was. I got outside just in time to see them round the back corner of the building, toward the dense woods that press right up against the parking lot. I hurried after them, my heart pounding against my ribs. When I turned the corner, they were gone. The only thing there was the dark, silent wall of trees. And then I heard it. The singing. It wasn't Janis Joplin this time. This was something else entirely. Ancient and wordless, a lullaby that promised a sleep deeper than any grave. The sound wrapped around me a thick, warm blanket of pure melody. It seemed to vibrate in the fillings of my teeth. My feet grew heavy. My thoughts slowed, spiraling down into that beautiful, terrible sound. Through a growing haze, I thought I saw movement at the edge of the tree line. Something pale, an arm, and a flash of dark fabric being pulled into the bracken. But the details swam and blurred, washed away by the current of the song. My mind didn't want to see it. The song told me I didn't see it. The song told me I was tired and I should go back inside for another drink. The next thing I knew, the bartender was shaking my shoulder. It was closing time. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. I drove out to the cabin, my mind a jumble of fragmented images and that haunting melody. I had to make sure she was okay. I knocked for a long time before she finally opened the door. She looked exhausted, with dark, bruised-looking circles under her eyes. But her voice, when she spoke, was as smooth and clear as a mountain spring. "Can I help you?" "Morning, Renadine. Just checking in. Making sure you're all right after last night." She blinked slowly, those green eyes searching my face as if trying to place me. "I'm fine," she said after a long moment. "Just a long night is all. I'm not feeling well. I'm afraid I need to say goodbye now." The last few words were layered with those mesmerizing tones. They weren't a request. They were a command, delivered so gently I barely felt the steel beneath it. My own will just folded. "Of course," I heard myself say. "You take it easy. I'll leave you be." I walked back to my truck in a daze. I know it sounds crazy. I know an old man's memory can play tricks on him. But it all feels so real. That was yesterday. This morning, I was clearing some brush near the edge of my property line, where it meets the woods behind her cabin. My shovel hit something metal. I bent down, my knee groaning, and dug it out of the dirt. It was a belt buckle. heavy, silver, with an ugly design of a snarling wolf's head on it. I recognized it instantly. It was the one Silas Croft was wearing at the bar. I stood there for a long time, the cold metal heavy in my palm, the memory of that lullaby echoing in my head. I looked over at the cabin where a thin curl of smoke was rising from the chimney. And the strangest thing happened. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel the urge to call the sheriff. I felt safe. I felt protected. I dropped the buckle back into the hole, covered it with dirt, and went back to my work. I don't know what my new tenant is, but I know the woods are quieter now. The whole town feels a little bit safer, and I'm not late on the rent.